Vladimir Putin simply had to say yes. Russia was offered peace on a silver platter. Even if a full peace declaration was not on the table for Putin, he was presented with the option of a 30-day ceasefire. This would have, at a minimum, temporarily stopped the hemorrhaging that has cost Russia over 1.12 million soldiers since the start of its invasion of Ukraine. But Putin refused peace, again and again. Now, Ukraine's flying sanctions are forcing Russia to pay the price by utterly wrecking its economy. As the Atlantic Council noted on October 6th, things could have gone very differently. Throughout much of 2025, not only was US President Donald Trump advocating for peace in Ukraine, but to many observers, he appeared to favor Putin's position over that of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump continued to propose generous peace terms to Russia, even as Putin escalated his invasion, unleashing unprecedented numbers of long-range drones and missiles against Ukraine. Whether Ukraine would have ever agreed to those terms is irrelevant. At the very least, Trump was attempting to get Russia's president to negotiate. Putin, for his part, was saying what he thought were the right things. The Atlantic Council points out that the Kremlin frequently voiced support for a peace initiative led by Trump, though always with conditions. However, even while expressing this support, Putin engaged in games, delaying talks, refusing to meet with Zelensky, and saying one thing in meetings only to do the complete opposite on the ground. Throughout 2025, it grew more and more obvious to all, particularly to Donald Trump, that there is often a vast difference between what Putin says and what he does. Putin has shown he is unwilling to compromise on any point. He insists that Ukraine must give up territory, including the crucial regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. Furthermore, he demands that Ukraine scale back its military to a mere fraction of its current strength, a move that would only make a future Russian invasion easier. Regarding NATO, Putin's position is unwavering. Under no circumstances can Ukraine be permitted to join. It's impossible to reach a compromise with a man who refuses to bend. Putin's demands are, in effect, a rejection of peace. The Atlantic Council argues that it is now time to cease playing Putin's games. If he refuses a negotiated peace, the only alternative is to compel him to accept peace through strength. And although the US is set to play a part in this new strategy, as shown by the Trump administration mulling the sale of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, one nation has executed the peace-through-strength approach against Putin more effectively than any other. That nation is the one Putin expected to collapse 3.5 years ago at the start of his invasion, Ukraine.
Ukraine has borne the brunt of Putin's refusal to make peace, as Russia's leader repeatedly offered a carrot only to snatch it away and replace it with more drones, bombs, and troops. In response, particularly in the second half of 2025, Ukraine has escalated its use of its flying sanctions to inflict more damage on Russia than Putin could have ever imagined. In the absence of successful peace talks, Ukraine is applying immense pressure on Putin. And according to Zelensky in a recent October 9th interview with various journalists, Ukraine is seeing results.
Reporting on this interview, United 24 Media noted that Zelensky spoke about several crucial Ukrainian weapon systems and their positive impact in penalizing Putin for his rejection of peace. The first of these weapons is one that has previously made headlines for Ukraine. The Palyannitsia is operational, and it's striking deep within Russia's military infrastructure. There are positive developments. In dozens of instances, Palyannitsia has already started striking enemy ammunition depots, Zelensky informed journalists.
This is a positive development. Situations were different before, and now we're no longer talking about isolated incidents. In other words, the Palyannitsia is not just being used in rare cases anymore. Its frequent and effective deployment suggests Ukraine is producing the weapon in large numbers to eliminate ammunition stockpiles. By destroying ammunition before Russian forces can use it, Ukrainian defenders face weakened Russian attacks that are easier to repel. While the Palyannitsia has been under development for some time, specifics about its capabilities have only surfaced in the last month or so. This rocket drone was first announced on Ukraine's Independence Day, August 24, 2024. Just over a year after that, JSC Ukrainian defense industry, unveiled its specifications at a Polish arms exhibition in September. The Palianitsia is a 705-pound drone with the capacity for a 220-pound payload, placing it ahead of many of Ukraine's other long-range drones like the Lyuty. While the Lyuty is itself impressive, its upgraded version carries only a 165-pound warhead, which means the Palianitsia delivers a much more powerful strike. The range of this rocket drone is another advantage for Ukraine. With a range of up to 403 miles, it is an ideal choice for striking Russian bases located just across the border. This is probably why Zelensky specifically mentioned using the Palianitsia to destroy Russian ammo depots. These depots were likely situated inside Russia, where Putin might have assumed they were safe from most Ukrainian weapons. The Palianitsia, however, can reach them. This rocket drone is also challenging to intercept. The Palianitsia reaches a cruising speed of 559 miles per hour. While not subsonic, this is fast enough to make it a difficult target. Additionally, as a drone, it operates at a significantly lower altitude than the missiles Russia's air defense systems are primarily designed to counter. Capable of flying as low as 49 feet, the Palianitsia can maintain an altitude that renders it nearly invisible to Russian radar. According to Zelensky, Ukraine has been wielding this weapon with lethal effectiveness to punish Putin for spurning peace. Yet the Palianitsia is not the only weapon in Ukraine's arsenal for this purpose. There is also the Ruta. A further positive development is our missile drone Ruta, which for the first time has hit a maritime platform over 250 kilometers away, Zelensky stated in his interview. He also mentioned that weapons like the Lyuty drone and Ukraine S-Firepoint have been deployed en masse during a major operation that included 300 units. Zelensky went on to say, "We realize that Ust-Luga and Primorsk are now within our range. From my perspective, what has occurred is a truly significant success." The two locations mentioned by Ukraine's president are both ports used by Russia for oil transport, both for domestic purposes and for export. Following a Ukrainian strike on the port in September, the BBC reported that Primorsk is Russia's biggest oil terminal on the Baltic Sea. The report highlights that Primorsk serves as the final station of the Baltic pipeline system, making it crucial for Russian oil exports. During that same attack, Ukraine also struck the Ust-Luga terminal. Its proximity to Estonia means it also utilizes the Baltic Sea, acting as a critical link in the supply chain for Russia's oil shipments. Attacks of this nature serve to cripple Russia's oil industry, which consequently harms the Russian economy. It's noteworthy that Zelensky specifically mentioned the Ruta, a weapon that has arguably received less attention than drones like the Lyuty and Palianitsia. Defense Express reported in December 2024 that Ruta is a long-range missile drone developed by Destinus, a company founded by Mikhail Kokorich. The founder is significant because he is a Russian who fled Putin's regime before establishing his company, making Ruta a case of Ukraine leveraging Russian ingenuity against Putin. In a May follow-up to its initial report, the same source disclosed that the Ruta has been upgraded with a new navigation system for precision strikes. This enhancement is likely what enabled the drone to achieve the direct hit on a maritime platform that Zelensky mentioned. Beyond these details, little else is known about the missile drone. It is thought to have a range of 186 miles, comparable to the US-provided ATACMS missiles. This range makes the Ruta well-suited for targeting Russian assets in Crimea and the Black Sea, which is likely where the maritime platform mentioned by Zelensky was positioned. Official specifications for the drone's warhead are unavailable, but Defense Express reports that experts speculate it could carry a payload similar in size to the Palianitsia AES. Evidence is already surfacing of how Ukraine's flying sanctions are making Putin pay for his refusal of peace. One type of drone is eliminating Russian ammunition depots, weakening Putin's frontline forces. This results in higher Russian casualties and, consequently, greater expenses for the Kremlin to fund new soldiers. The attacks on Russia's terminals are constricting the flow of oil revenue, and strikes on maritime platforms continue to reduce Russia's influence and operational capacity in the Black Sea. The primary strategy for Ukraine in 2025 has been to take the war into Russia. Zelensky's remarks indicate this strategy is being executed with remarkable success. The Ukrainian president also confirmed a long-standing rumor. Both the Flamingo and Neptune missiles are operational and have seen recent use. In the last week, I will not provide numbers. We have deployed our Neptune Flamingo pair, Zelensky stated to journalists. The results can be analyzed independently. We aren't discussing mass usage of this pair. We are merely stating it has been used and there are early indications of success with this weapon. For Putin, this is dire news. While Ukraine's drones are potent enough to damage Russian military assets and oil refineries, the Flamingo and Neptune are in a different league entirely. They both deliver a far more powerful impact than the drones, with the Flamingo carrying a warhead weighing over 2,500 pounds. That missile packs 10 times the punch of a Palyanitsia and has a range of up to 1,864 miles. Another video has already covered the Flamingo and its initial deployments, so you can watch that to understand why this specific weapon is the last thing Russia wants to hear Zelensky confirm is active. Additionally, Ukraine possesses a new, equally dangerous version of its Neptune missile, nicknamed Puffy Neptune. Once again, you can check out a separate video for more details on that weapon. These are both missiles built by and in Ukraine, representing another blow to Putin's strategy of avoiding peace. The Russian leader may have hoped to leverage his influence with Trump to stop Ukraine from using US-supplied long-range missiles against Russian territory. And just a few weeks ago, that appeared to be the situation, as the Wall Street Journal reported the US had prohibited Ukraine from using Western missiles inside Russia through an approval system that consistently denied every request. Now, with the Flamingo and Neptune, Ukraine no longer needs to ask for permission. It can strike Russia as frequently as it can produce these potent new weapons. In the end, Ukraine's real punishment for Putin has been the long-range strikes enabled by the weapons Zelensky mentioned, and others. Each strike acts as a flying sanction, targeting a particular component of the Russian war machine. And no sector has felt the impact of Ukraine's proactive measures more than Russia's oil industry. Ukraine has wrecked Russia's oil refining capabilities. As Zelensky explains, gasoline shortages are now widespread across Russia. Ukraine is accomplishing truly significant things, and our long-range sanctions against Russia are clear proof of this, said Zelensky. Based on our data, Russia's fuel shortage is nearing 20%. This number specifically relates to gasoline, but Russia's diesel supply is also impacted. While diesel shortages have not yet materialized within Russia, Zelensky states that the country is being compelled to use its rainy day diesel reserves. The fuel shortage is causing domestic turmoil in Russia. RBC Ukraine offers more specifics, reporting that 5 Russian regions have had to restrict gasoline sales. One of these regions is Crimea, which might provide context for the Ruda strike on a maritime platform near the peninsula. Chelyabinsk, Sverdlovsk, Novosibirsk, and Tyumen are the other 4 regions affected. The latter is particularly significant as it houses a major Russian oil refinery that was targeted by Ukraine earlier in October on Putin's birthday. Russia may attempt to downplay the effectiveness of Ukraine's long-range attacks, but a gasoline shortage in a refinery region suggests otherwise. In nearly every instance, Russian gasoline consumers are limited to just 30 liters per purchase. This is far from enough to fill the tank of a modern car, making long-distance travel a risky endeavor for drivers in the world's largest nation. Additionally, RBC Ukraine reports that 360 Russian gas stations had to close in August and September. While this represents only 1 out of every 50 gas stations in Russia, it is still a substantial figure that shows the difficulty Russia faces in supplying its fuel businesses. To address this fuel shortage, Russia has a couple of options, none of which are beneficial for the country. In the short term, Russia has had to import fuel from other countries to maintain its domestic supply. This scenario underscores the economic consequences of Ukraine's long-range attacks. Importing fuel is more expensive for Russia than producing its own, meaning Ukraine's drones are effectively making Russia pay a premium for the very product it is known for. Regarding imports, for instance, we have some data. They are importing from Belarus and China. Imports from Belarus have risen 6-fold,
and they have eliminated import duties, Zelensky recently informed reporters. While the Ukrainian president noted this information required verification, multiple media outlets had already reported on it. The Moscow Times, for example, reported on October 8th that Russian imports of gasoline from Belarus had quadrupled in September compared to August. The outlet reports that Russia purchased 49,000 tons of gasoline from Belarus in September, in addition to 33,000 tons of diesel. It also suggests that Ukrainian strikes on Russian refineries are the probable cause for these imports, noting that approximately 1/3 of Russia's refineries were hit in August and September. On October 2nd, oil price. Com also covered Russia's increasing gasoline imports, stating the country intends to purchase more from China, Singapore, and South Korea. In every case, Russia is forgoing the standard 5% duty on fuel imports, dealing another blow to its economy. This means less revenue for the Russian state, money that could have funded the war in Ukraine. Russia's willingness to waive this duty just to keep its domestic pumps supplied suggests a high level of desperation. If further proof is needed that Ukraine's long-range strikes are working, one only needs to examine Russia's gasoline exports. They are non-existent. They have a ban on gasoline exports and restrictions on diesel exports, Zelensky informed reporters. While this needs verification, we believe that they've lost up to 20% of their gasoline supply, directly as a result of our strikes. Once again, these bans have been confirmed by multiple sources. The Moscow Times reported on September 30th that Russia extended its existing ban on gasoline exports through the end of 2025, a ban which applies to all exporters, including the producers themselves. The same source notes that resellers are prohibited from exporting diesel. This prevents companies that had purchased diesel for overseas shipment from doing so. It appears Russia is seeking complete control over its diesel sales, possibly in anticipation of a future where it cannot export that fuel at all. Incidentally, these diesel restrictions also extend to several other refined Russian oil products, such as marine fuel. These restrictions on diesel are not a crippling blow to Russian fuel producers, as resellers account for no more than 2% of diesel sales. Therefore, this may not signal an impending diesel crisis like the one seen with gasoline. Nevertheless, any measure Russia takes to limit its own oil sales will inevitably have repercussions for its economy. The Oxford Institute for Energy Studies clarifies the reason for this. It states that revenues from Russia's oil and gas sectors make up anywhere between 30% and 50% of the nation's total budget revenues annually. These industries also typically contribute around 20% to Russia's gross domestic product. The brilliance of Ukraine's response to Putin's rejection of peace lies in its strategy of methodically targeting the one Russian commodity it knows is in high demand. Currently, the primary impact is felt within Russia's domestic market. Gasoline availability is low, and the resulting shortages are driving up prices, which will hurt Russians in a country already dealing with an 8.1% inflation rate in August and several months of over 10% inflation in 2025. Should Ukraine continue to apply pressure by destroying more of Russia's oil infrastructure, the current temporary export bans could become permanent. This would mean a significant reduction in money flowing into Russia. The destruction of oil terminals adds to these export issues and might even make it difficult for Russia to import fuel. Furthermore, each attack on a Russian military target, like the ammo depots Zelensky noted, forces Russia to spend more on the war at a time when its financial reserves are dwindling. All of this could have been avoided had Putin simply agreed to a peace deal. But he refused, and now Ukraine's flying sanctions are making Russia pay the consequences. To get a clearer picture of how Ukraine is leveraging its long-range weapons to inflict pain on Russia, consider how the country put Putin through a month of hell in September. When combined with conventional European sanctions, these flying sanctions are tearing Russia apart. Learn more in our video, and don't forget to subscribe to Warzone Party for further coverage of Russia's gasoline crisis.